to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll begin by reviewing the draft minutes of the previous meeting. I don't have any corrections, but I would like to make a clarification. This is for the meeting held on October 18th of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the clarification, it's kind of one of your quotes, Patricia. It's on page 6. And it's line 6, the first word. And this is regards to the KFC signing. We have the signs for the KFC establishment. So Member Curran stated that having 4 signs when 2 were allowed. So how about approving? I think it just kind of clarifies the intention of the variance and what the applicant was proposing. But I would make a motion then to accept these minutes with that, the draft minutes with this clarification. Would a member second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Approve with that one clarification. I just want to review tonight's agenda. We're going to begin. We have 5 public hearings tonight. We have 697 Hoosick Road, followed by 12 Coldhammer. Next would be 9 Lord Avenue. After that, 208 Old Seek Road. And lastly, 1004 Hoosick Road. So we'll start with our first item on the agenda, and that is 697 Hoosick Road. It's a sign variance. I'll just ask the applicant, just want to come to the podium, just give a brief overview of the project and let us know if there have been any changes to the application.
So no changes, it's just a 4x4 sign covering up where the temporary banner is, going in the same exact spot so people can actually see us when they get up.
Okay. Okay, and where would that be located on the building?
On the right and left side.
Okay. And we do have, this was handed into the members tonight.
Yes,
Yep.
it's a circular sign.
Okay.
I have one question, though. I think it's for, not for the applicant, though, but I have one question for Chuck.
Yes.
There's something about the freestanding sign in the parking lot. It doesn't need a 50-foot setback. Is that because the main building is not set back 50 feet?
Right, yep, the law states that you're allowed a freestanding sign or a monument sign in front of it if you have the 50-foot setback, as well as there's also numbers of distance on the road edge, what you have for frontage, and this happens to be at a intersection. So he does have that frontage, but he does not have the 50-foot setback, and this is one of the reasons what the request is for the sides of the building. Because the front of the building is so close to Hoosick Road, you really don't have the ability of depth or be able to see the sign for any amount of distance.
But do we need to do anything about the freestanding sign? Because that sign has been there for previous buildings.
Was there for Subway? Yeah.
Was there ever a variance?
Not that I'm aware of. Not for
Or do we need to
697.
do anything about that?
You probably to clean
As
it
far
up.
as I
Yeah.
know, it was an existing sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Previously used.
Had a Subway on it. Yeah.
Right.
At Subway, and I
Right.
don't know if with the hair salon was there, if it also had that on there.
I don't know the history of it, but as we sit here right now, I would presume that's a pre-existing sign, monument sign for that location. You're correct, it's been there for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just because it was noted in, I
The square
think-
footage area, I added it into that,
Right.
but they're
Right.
nowhere near 300.
Right. I mean, that was just a question for you because it's noted someplace in the information
Mhm.
here that we received. And I just would have thought that if there had been a variance, it would have already been on file.
Right.
Or-
which I did not find.
So, but you,
So
should we be doing?
We can take it as pre-existing.
Okay, we can just take it as pre-existing and,
You know, it's a fair question, but again, the application is for the two on the side.
right,
And the building department have raised any issue concerning the compliance of the existing monument sign. So that's the only thing in front of you tonight. are the
okay, all right,
variances
that's
for the
fine,
two.
no problem.
So Mr. Shapezi, we're done with you for right now. If you want to kindly sit down, and then we'll open up the floor for the public hearing.
All right.
Thank you. And if there are any other questions, we'll ask you to come back up. So we'll open the public hearing on this application, noting that the notice was published in the Troy Record, placed on the town signboard, posted on the town website, and mailed to all owners of the adjacent property within 300 feet of the project. Mr. Gilchrist, if you could kindly read for us the notice of public hearing, please.
Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Brunswick at 6 PM on Monday, November 15, 2021 at the Brunswick Town Hall, 336 Town Office Road, Brunswick, New York, 12180, concerning the application submitted by Larry Shapishi for a sign variance for property located at 697 Hoosick Road. Copies of the application are available at the Brunswick Town Hall and are available for public inspection during regular business hours. All interested persons will be heard at the public hearing.
Yeah, thank you. The zoning board will open the floor for receipt of public comment. If anyone would like to speak for or against the application, you're willing to do so. And I don't think there have been any public
We're
comments.
seeing no
Right.
written or emailed comments.
Are there any other questions from any of the zoning board members?
No.
Hearing no public comment, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Would a member second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Patricia. All in favor? All right, thank you. The public hearing is closed. So similar to an application that we saw, I think may have been last month, where the zoning board requested some materials and they were subsequently handed in after the determination that was made. Maybe we can consider that now, because I believe that there are a few items that was requested. So I have 5, and maybe Chuck, we can kind of go down the list and see for the record if it's complete for that. So like the first would be the scale rendering on the buildings. The second would be the total square footage, and you do have that one.
Got square footage, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Third,
The scaled rendering on the building I thought was going to be hard to come by.
okay, yeah, all right. List of existing proposed signs, a letter from the owner. Got that. And the correct application form, we have that. All right, all right. So if the board is satisfied with what has come in, then we could move on to deliberate and act on the application. So we can look at the, I'm sorry.
I'm not.
Okay, yeah, great, thank you. So we can look at seeker. And this is not a type 2. Where's my cheat sheet on that? Let's see. Here we go. So it's a non-residential seeker review process. There's a short environmental assessment form that was submitted with the application materials. So unless any of the members think that there is a potential for at least one significant adverse environmental impact from the proposed action, again, it's a sign variance. Otherwise, we would declare a negative seeker. So I would make a motion to declare a negative seeker. Thank you for second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Then we'll look at our 5 elements, beginning with explaining how no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, nor detriment to nearby properties created by granting the area variance.
Sign variance.
Areas, correct, thank you, sign variance.
This is a commercial area. There are other businesses, other signs. These signs are, 2 are going to be attached to the sides of the building, and the one monument sign has been long existing, so it won't change anything in the neighborhood or have any impact on the other properties.
I would concur, it does, it's within the character of that neighborhood in the B15 zoning district. Then we're asked to explain why no benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the sign variance.
I would say because of the location of the actual building and how close it is to the main road, that there is no other way for him to advertise his business other than these signs on either side of the building.
Then we're asked to explain whether the requested sign variance is substantial, noting that it's a 4x4 sign that'll be covering an existing banner.
No,
No, I would
it's
agree.
it's not.
Right. Then we're asked to explain how the proposed area variance will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
It will have no environmental impact. It's not going to affect the air, the water, the soil, nothing environmental.
I agree. And then we're asked to explain whether the difficulty is self-created, noting, of course, that the consideration is relevant but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the sign variance. I think it goes back to the positioning of the building in relation to the road and trying to meet the potential customers which will be driving up and down Hoosick Street. So if there's no other further deliberation, we'll consider the balance between the benefit to the applicant as weighed against any detriment to the community or this neighborhood in particular, in granting with conditions or denying the requested sign variance.
I make a motion to approve the variance.
Second?
I make-
Yeah,
Can I
certainly.
make one suggestion, which is, if it's approved, then the ability of any future tenant to use signs on the side of the building would run with the property. This one may be that the signs are approved for this particular business, and that any change in use of the business would require the zoning board to revisit.
Fine.
That's a good suggestion.
Okay.
So that's the condition then.
I amend my,
Motion to
Amend your
include that
approval.
condition, right? And there is a second.
And I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So, Mr. Shapesi, your sign variance has been approved. If you just want to continue the coordination with our hardworking building department going forward, you should be all set. All right, thank you. Have a good night. Thank you for coming tonight. And Chuck, thank you for all the work that you did on that application. There was a lot of backdoor work with that. Thank you.
It started the day I hurt my back. Back in August.
Wow. Next up for a public hearing, we have 12 Coldhammer Avenue. This is an area variance sought by the applicants Thomas and Sheila Ogden in an R15 zoning district. Mr. Ogden, have there been any changes to the application since last month? Okay, thank you. We'll open the public hearing on this application by first reading the notice that was published in the Troy Record, placed on the town signboard, posted on the town website, and mailed to all owners of adjacent property within 300 feet of the project.
Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Brunswick at 6:15 PM on Monday, November 15, 2021, at the Brunswick Town Hall, 336 Town Office Road, Brunswick, New York, 12180, concerning the application submitted by Thomas Ogden and Sheila Ogden for an area variance in connection with the construction of a 16-foot by 16-foot shed on property located at 12 Coldhammer Avenue. Copies of the application are available at the Brunswick Town Hall and are available for public inspection during regular business hours. All interested persons will be heard at the public hearing.
Thank you very much. The zoning board will open the floor for receipt of public comment. If anyone would like to speak for or against this application, you're willing to do so. Are there any questions by any of the zoning board members for the applicant?
What is the actual size of the building? Because I couldn't really see the dimensions on it says 16 by 16.
Yes.
I thought there was something in the one that I looked at online that it talked about a 30-foot wide wall or something. Or is that? No.
No.
No?
Uh,
Okay. So, and the height of the building?
The walls are 10 foot, at the 14-foot peak at the point.
So, let me see. I just had a question for Chuck.
Of course.
The copy of the application that I have has no application number or stamped when it was received or anything like that. So I don't know if there is.
Is that true at all, you guys?
Yes. John, too.
It should look like this.
As long as we have one, the one that's on file has.
The receiving date should be October 15th, 2020. The application number is EB 2021-0221.
Okay, all right. Just a little housekeeping.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you for that question. Thank you for the
I
answer.
don't have any other questions regarding the shed.
Okay.
Other than that.
So hearing no public comment, I would make a motion to close the public hearing portion of this application. Would a member second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Patricia. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Public hearing is closed. The zoning board members are prepared to deliberate and act on this application, noting that it's a type 2. Under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, so no further secret determination is required. But please note the Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning weighed in, and the proposal does not have a major impact on county plans, and that local consideration shall prevail. And then just to note too, the difference between last month and this month, the board requested a drawing of the proposed 16 by 16 shed, and it was submitted by the applicants. All right, we'll begin by explaining how no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, nor detriment to properties nearby created by granting the area variance. And I'll just begin by saying the character of this particular neighborhood is very well maintained and landscaped, necessitating the need for storing and sheltering the equipment that maintain this well-landscaped neighborhood. Many neighbors have sheds for the purpose of storage and maintaining tidy yards, which is the reason that this applicant is seeking for the area variance. The proposed location puts the shed out of view from the right and left neighbors pretty significantly.
I agree.
And we're asked to explain why the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance.
Well, this is really just a replacement shed. He said 2 older sheds, and now he's putting up this, taking the 2 older sheds down and putting up this very nice looking shed in its place.
Yeah, and I think the location of the septic field, which is behind the applicant's house, the way that the sides slope, they're not level, that this proposed site in the rear of the property is level, and is near to the fence and the shed of the rear neighbor. And then we're asked to describe whether the requested area variance is substantial. And just to restate the requested area variance, it seeks a relief of 14 feet. There's a setback. The rear setback is 20 feet is required and 6 is proposed. So I would say that it's not substantial, in particular in this R15 residential district. And we're asked to explain how the proposed area variance will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
But will not have any effects on the environmental conditions of the neighborhood. They're going to put it on a slab. He's not disturbing anything. He's not taking down any trees. And the physical condition of the neighborhood, it'll enhance the looks of the neighborhood.
I would agree, yep. And then lastly, we're asked to explain whether the difficulty is self-created.
I don't believe so because of the nature of his property and where he has a lot of trees and his septic system, and it's basically the only location where he could put the shed.
Thank you. So noting no further deliberation, we're asked to consider the balance between the benefit to the applicant is weighed against any detriment to the neighborhood, in particular or the community at large, to determine to grant the requested variance. Again, it's a rear yard setback.
I make a motion that we grant the setback.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Your area variance is approved. So just kindly continue the work that you're doing with the building department, moving forward with your project. We wish you all the best of luck. Thank you. Good night. Okay. Next up is a public hearing for a sign variance for AJ Sign Company located in Lord Avenue.
She moved from Route 50? You said the sign company located at Lord Avenue.
Oh, okay, right, sorry. Representing. Right. Would the applicant like to come up and just to present a little overview of your project, please? Thank you.
Hello again. So the project is for signage at the New Hannaford located at 9 Lord Ave. We've made a submission for 299 square feet and one extra sign that goes above and beyond what's allowed by code. So our request is for one extra sign. One small update I just wanted to make. We did hear the board last month mention that the pylon looked dark for the night view. So we did look into the alternative of punching out letters on that 911 address. Sign is small enough where that's sort of ineffective in being any brighter. So the supplemental exhibit that you have tonight is actually our original submission, but we did a better job at rendering what that would really look like in real life. And page 2 is actually a pylon in South Burlington, Vermont at one of our new stores. It's the same exact design. It's where we use it at the majority of our newer stores. And just to show that you can still see the 911 address, clearly the Hannaford panel is brighter and more visible, but that's sort of the intent. Ultimately, that is number one. And then, but to clarify that you can see the address. So same submission, really, just some better graphics.
Great, thank you. Thank you. So we'll open the public hearing on this application. Noting that it was published in the Troy Record, placed on the town signboard, posted on the town website, and mailed to all owners of adjacent property within 300 feet. Mr. Gilchrist, could you kind of read the posting, please?
Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Brunswick at 6:30 PM on Monday, November 15, 2021, at the Brunswick Town Hall, 336 Town Office Road, Brunswick, New York, 12180, concerning the application submitted by AJ Sign Company for a sign variance for property located on Lord Avenue. The application pertains to the Hannaford grocery store to be constructed at that location. Copies of the application are available at Brunswick Town Hall and are available for public inspection during regular business hours. All interested persons will be heard at the public hearing.
Thank you. The zoning board will open the floor for receipt of public comment. And if you would like to speak for or against the application, you're willing to come up and do so. Hello.
Hi, my name's Ed Golden, and I live on Lord Avenue. And I just want to know, what is this variance? What are they asking to change? Where is the sign located? We have no idea what's going on.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad that you're here tonight to learn more about this application. Better who can explain it would be the applicant himself. So if they would like to come up and present maybe a better presentation.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and before that starts, the application does seek a variance for one additional sign under the Brunswick sign law. A total of 300 square feet of signage is allowed for commercial. This is at 299 square feet, so it's within the total square footage. It allows 2 signs. They're proposing 3. One pylon or monument type sign is allowed. They're proposing 1. They're asking for 1 additional sign on the building itself.
Correct. Yep. So the way that the supermarket is.
If you could come up, we're recording, so that'll help on the mic.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Okay, so the way that the building is architecturally built, there are going to be 2 peaks on that building. There'll be the main Hannaford sign, which would be here. So you have these kind of bump out. There'll be the main Hannaford sign, and then the extra sign that we've requested is on the other side. So architecturally symmetrical, and it's just the Hannaford logo. And then the pylon sign would be right here, so visible on Hoosick Street.
That being said, which was the signs up to the street.
Correct. Yeah, it's actually, she's talking about these are small. And so, as Mr. Gilchrist said, it's within the 300 square feet, just below. It's just for that extra sign. That would be all that now.
Oh, I see.
So this is what it looks like, yes, that's.
Where these
Yep.
are located.
Right, so these are the ones that don't.
So
people live all night long? No, well, no, It's not, what, I don't know how many hours, but it does, after the hours, after the store closes, it does. It will shut off. Yeah,
Right, because we're directly across the street from this multi-option. And if once you cut the trees down, that face Hoosick Street, Hoosick Road, we not only will get the light from the Cumberland Farm, which we already get residual light from Cumberland Farm, we will also get the light from what you say, how the light goes down. It will be on Liberty Road. So we do have some concerns about the amount of light coming in 24 hours a day.
Yeah, so it's not 24 hours a day. The building is set back quite a ways, I think it's 600 feet. So the building signs and the pylon, as I said, it's not right on the corner, but it's not, yeah, it's close enough where, I mean, you do need to see it by on Hoosick Road. And then the 911 lighting actually is just down lighting, so that is actually helpful in terms of, you know, the kind of, I think it's called night sky, regulations and whatnot. Okay. Actually, this was even in my.
Oh, good.
So could you kind of clarify again the direction that the monument sign will be facing and the light that be coming from that sign would be, to which road would that be facing?
The monument sign will face Hoosick Road. And it is not right on the corner. I'm not exactly sure how many feet back it is, but and the nature of the sign will have one panel for Hannaford. The dimensions, I should have brought them up, but the dimensions are right on the exhibit for how big that panel will be. And then the 911 address sits above it, and it will be downlit with recessed LED lighting.
The panel is 3'5" high by 6'7" wide,
Thank you.
with the main Hannaford lettering being 10.5 inches in height.
So is this where the sign is?
Yes. And this too, you can kind of think that yeah, it's there. Yeah, yeah.
I see that little yellow thing there.
This is not too awfully accurate, but it looks like it's going to be 23 feet set in, which is,
Off the.
yeah, there is a very strange easement there, and it's just on the edge of that.
Set back 23 feet from where?
From what would be the edge of pavement on 7. Well, you can call it that. There's a guardrail up there. It's shown right here.
Yeah, that's what I'm, so where's the sign?
Yes, right there.
So this is.
This is the easement. It's like they always designed it to have a bus pull up or something in there, but that's all state land in the front.
And also, there was a comment, if you can kind of clarify the hours that the lights will be illuminated. I believe from a previous meeting, that would be during hours of
I do
operation.
believe that's correct, which I want to say was 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. That sounds correct, but I would probably need to double check that. But those are typically our hours of operation.
And for the board's purposes, is that for all the signs or for the signs attached to the building? Will the pylon sign be lit on a different schedule?
I'm not sure. I think that is for all the signs there, but I'm not sure I could. I almost think that was a condition of our site plan, but, I don't want to say 100%, but typically that is the case.
There was a condition attached to the site plan dealing with the light poles in the parking lot
Yeah.
that needed to go out after the store hours ended, only for a very limited number of light for security as well as cleaning and stock people going in and out of the front of the building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want this?
Sure. Thank you very much. Are there any other comments? Chuck, have there been any receipt of any written
We
comments?
have received no written or email comments.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions by the zoning board members?
I'd just like to know what, about the sign, with the lighting on that.
What do you want to know more about?
Well, when the lights, if they go down, I mean, they can't go off, right? For the 911, that has to be, continue to be lit. But this looks like it is. And that sign looks like it's lit, doesn't it?
It does.
Like it's like,
So we have a question for the applicant in regards to the rendering that you showed us from the Vermont sign. Is that a backlighting or is that a downlighting? Could you-
So that's downlighting.
That is downlighting.
that's just the down.
That's light from the panel, the Hannaford panel, and then above it is just downlighting.
So this panel is lit.
The Hannaford panel is backlit, correct?
Does that have the capability to dim?
I want to talk about LEDs a little bit. These signs are all internally illuminated with LEDs. Few nice things about LEDs. Number one, they're energy efficient, good for the environment. They last longer. And then the second thing is they have a very short throw. So a car headlight, it's made to throw far. So if you're going 60 miles an hour, you can't outdrive the headlight and you can see. And if that comes in your window, it comes right in your window. Whereas an LED, the light comes and then goes like this and doesn't go far. So that light, it doesn't go 600 feet. Where the store is 600 feet back from the road, that light's not going to go that far. It's not like a flashlight beam. It's more the sign lights up and you can see it, but it doesn't cast light far. So if you see a parking lot that's lit with the big old metal halide lights, there's fewer poles. Whereas LEDs, you'll have many more light poles and they're lower to the ground because again, that light doesn't throw far. So with the neighbors across the street and that type of thing, you're not going to have the light from the signs in the building or even the monument sign going into their windows. The car lights going by are brighter. Things like that are going to be brighter. So it is a benefit to the people around that these are LED.
Thank you.
But I just have concerns because of, not that the sign is going to light up their yard or shine in their windows, but it's just that now that light is there and it's on all the time and it's on all night long. That's just the only concern that I have.
So all night long, meaning 24 hours, or all
Right.
night long, meaning during business hours?
No, 24 hours a day. Is that not what they're saying, that light will be on 24 hours a day? Or is it,
Or are we talking about the month? So
I'm talking about the monument sign.
The monument sign is typically on 24 hours. I mean, we need to be able to light the number for 911 purposes. If a stock person or whoever, a cleaner gets hurt, they do need to be able to find the building.
It's
So
a
that's a safety concern. The building signs can be shut down when the store closes.
Now, I understand you, the monument sign is facing Route 7, so people in the houses won't see the light.
It's perpendicular.
It is,
Right.
yeah, it's actually, it's not like, yeah, it's sort of at an angle and as, you had suggested, it is not right on the road. I think it's about 23 feet back, from Route 7.
It is a very soft glow. And really, the LEDs are diffused by the 3/16 thick polycarbonate face. Not nearly as bright as the cars going by or other things like that in the area.
So it sounds like you had a question about when the light would be illuminated. But because the 911 is attached to it, the name of the building's attached to it, kind
It's
of
a
regarded as
safety
a
issue.
safety issue. Mhm. Any other questions?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. So hearing no further comments from the public, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll
Do I have a
second that.
second? Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Thank you. Sit down, thank you. So the zoning board members are prepared to deliberate and act on this application. First, noting that it's a non-residential seeker review process. There is a short environmental assessment form submitted with the application. So whether in the board's opinion, there is a potential for at least one significant adverse environmental impact from the proposed action, we would declare a negative seeker. And I would make the motion to declare a negative seeker. Sorry, no, it's okay, as there is not a significant adverse environmental impact proposed by the granting of the additional sign variance. Also want to note that the Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning has weighed in, and there has no significance to the county plans, and that local consideration shall prevail.
Right, so before you move on, Shan did make a motion to adopt a negative declaration. We'll need a second and then
I
we'll vote.
second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Then we'll consider our elements, explaining how no undesirable change will be reduced in the character of the neighborhood nor a detriment to nearby properties created by granting the sign variance.
I'd just like to say, I think the store will make a difference in the neighborhood, but one extra sign won't. That's what we're considering is one extra sign.
Thank you. Then we're asked to explain why the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. I think with this, I think we can surely note that the applicants came in with a much grandiose plan for their signs, with the total amount of square footage that was proposed, and that's been scaled back to keep it within the zoning laws, 300 square feet. And John, as you stated, the zoning law allows for 2 and 3 are being proposed. And then we're asked to describe whether the requested area variance is substantial.
No, I don't think it's substantial. fact that it's, wait, let me put this one sign. It's only one sign and they're still under the maximum allowed.
Yeah, square footage, yeah.
That's right.
We're asked to explain how the proposed sign variance will not have any adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district. You can look at such factors as traffic, drainage, dust, noise, odor. Again, this is a sign. And then lastly, to explain whether the difficulty is self-created, where the consideration is relevant but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the sign variance. Well, sure, it's self-created, but again, it's trying to conform to this business district and having the signs that are for safety reasons, and then again, to advertise their business. So without any further deliberation, we consider to approve the sign variance after considering the balance between the benefit to the applicant against weighed against any detriment to the community at large or the neighborhood in particular to determine to grant the sign variance.
Well, I think if we do approve it, it should certainly be a condition of hours of lighting. And I'm wondering if on the monument sign, the 911 has to be lit, but that's lit with a downlight. Could the rest of the sign be shut off at night?
Mhm.
Of just the downlight on the 911 was showing.
Mhm.
Is that feasible or not?
You're asking the applicant?
I think it might be feasible. I did just check with my colleague, and he believes that that it would shut off with the parking lot lighting, so shortly after the store closes, per what we had approved as a condition when we got our site plan approval.
So the backlighting on the monument sign, you believe will shut down when the parking lot lights?
Shortly thereafter, correct. Which is shortly after the store closes.
Store closes.
Yes. Again, I've been, transparent here. I'm not 100% positive, but that is what I'm hearing, correct. And yes, the downlighting, I imagine they are two different mechanisms that they would be able to keep that on since it is required.
So it sounds like it's reasonable.
I think so,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay, so we can make that a condition, right?
Correct.
So how do we word that?
So a condition would be the building signs as well as the backlit Hannaford sign on the monument would be shut off when the parking lot lights are shut off. But the 911 sign with downlighting would remain 24/7 for safety purposes.
It sounds fair and
Yeah.
reasonable.
Yes. I make a motion that we approve the sign variance with the conditions stated.
We have a second.
I'll send you that.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. So your sign variance has been approved. Please continue to work with the building department going forward. Yeah, thank you. Our next public hearing is an application for the area variance at 208 Old Seek Road. This is located in an A40 district. Seeking to put up a 30-foot by 50-foot metal garage on the property. Please note that the notice for this public hearing was published in the Troy Record, placed on the town signboard, posted on the town website and mailed to all owners of adjacent property within 300 feet. Would you kind of give a notice, please?
Okay, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Brunswick at 6:45 PM on Monday, November 15, 2021, at the Brunswick Town Hall, 336 Town Office Road, Brunswick, New York, 12180, concerning the application submitted by Donald Schneider and Kathleen Schneider for an area variance in connection with the construction of a 30-foot by 50-foot metal garage on property located at 208 Old Seek Road. Copies of the application are available at the Brunswick Town Hall and are available for public inspection during regular business hours. All interested persons will be heard at the public hearing.
Thank you very much. We'll ask the applicant to come up and just give us a brief overview of the project and note if there have been any changes to the application materials. Hi, thanks for coming tonight.
There's no changes. Basically the same thing. I just want to put a garage up to keep our stuff out of the weather. Really know what else to say.
Oh, well, that sums it up beautifully. All right. Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. And just like the other public hearings, we'll open up the public hearing and go from there.
Okay.
Thank you. So the zoning board will open the receipt of public comment. If anyone would like to speak for or against the application, you're welcome to come up to the podium. Are there any questions from any of the zoning board members? Okay. Hearing no public comment, I would make a motion to close the public hearing. May I have a second? Thank you, Patricia. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The public hearing is closed. The zoning board members are prepared to deliberate and act on this area variance. We'll note that it's a type 2 action, a residential application under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, which requires no further seeker determination. Also, please note that the Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning weighed in. This application has no impact on county plans, so local consideration shall prevail. All right. So we'll look at our standards on this very well put together application. We're asked to explain how no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood nor detriment to nearby properties created by granting the area variance. And I'll just begin by saying that it's difficult to see if there are other accessory structures in the neighborhood due to the large front setbacks of the neighboring properties. Though it is reasonable to consider that nearby properties would have accessory structures for the purpose of storing yard equipment such as mowers, tools, and other vehicles. And we're also asked to explain why the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the requested area variance.
As the applicant explained in his application, he wants the garage to be off of his driveway. He can't put it behind his house because his septic is there and other parts of his property, the terrain is not level. So this is the best spot for him to be able to put it.
Yeah, I agree. There's a well location involved and the topography of the land. And we're asked to describe whether the requested area variance is substantial. So noting that it is an accessory structure in front of a primary structure. It's going to be a 30-foot by 50-foot metal garage.
It's not substantial based on the fact that he sits so far back from he has quite a large setback
Yeah, I believe it's
of
100,
his main structure.
right, and this proposed garage is about approximately 137 feet from the road, right? I would agree with you, Patricia, it's not substantial. We're asked to explain how the proposed area variance will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And I would say after some minor disturbances during construction, the final project would not have any significant impact to the environment. And then lastly, explain whether the difficulty is self-created, of course noting that the consideration is relevant but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance.
Self-created in the fact that he wants to put the garage up.
Right.
Other than that.
Right. If there's no other further deliberation, I would then ask the board to consider the balance between the benefit to the applicant as weighed against any detriment to the community at large or the neighborhood in particular, and determining to grant the requested area variance.
I make a motion that we grant the area variance.
Thank you. Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So your area variance has been granted. Just continue to work with our fine people at the building department and going forward with your project. And we wish you the best of luck and hopefully you get it done before the snow flies, right? Have a good night. No idea how to speak for here. Good night. Okay. And lastly, for the final public hearing for tonight is an application for a sign variance of Troy Botanical Garden LLC for property located at 1004 Hoosick Road. Would the applicant like to come forward to the podium, just give us a brief overview of your project, please?
Okay, nothing has changed.
Okay, good to know.
Since you dug up. The only thing is that when we first go ahead and we're gonna put a small sign in there until the bigger sign's made up.
Okay, fine, yeah.
Otherwise, everything's staying the same.
Yeah, great. And what do you think that time line will be from when you can get your big sign in? How are things running?
Right now, he's probably looking at more or less towards spring.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
because he's gonna be doing it through Troy, but again, with the weather.
Yeah, right. All things considered, sure.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the board will open the public hearing on this application, noting that the notification was placed on the town signboard, published in the Troy Record, posted on the town website, and mailed to all owners of adjacent property within 300 feet of the proposed project. Sounds like a cell phone.
Okay, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Brunswick at 7 p.m. on Monday, November 15, 2021, at the Brunswick Town Hall, 336 Town Office Road, Brunswick, New York, 12180, concerning the application submitted by Troy Botanical Garden LLC for a sign variance for property located at 1004 Hoosick Road. Copies of the application are available at the Brunswick Town Hall and are available for public inspection during regular business hours. All interested persons will be heard at the public hearing.
Zoning Board will open the floor for receipt of public comment. If anyone would like to speak for or against the application, you're welcome to come up and do so. Chuck, have there been any receipt of any written comments?
We've received no written or emailed comments.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any zoning board member?
No.
Okay, thanks. So hearing no public comment, I would make a motion to close the public hearing. Pardon me.
What is the project?
Yeah, certainly. So this is a sign. It's a sign variance at 1004 Hoosick Road.
Brunswick Green Golf
Yes,
Course,
that's right.
yes.
That's right. So it's a new establishment coming in, a new owner, and he's advertising his business. Let's see. I have a picture for you. So it was in the application. This is kind of what it looks like. It's an 86-inch by 86-inch sign. So if you're familiar with what's there now, so there are 2 posts out by the road, 2 posts, and there's a sign for Brunswick Greens. What the applicant is proposing is to use up all that space that's in that post for the new sign. Yeah, so it's advertising a Korean noodle and tea house.
And that's gonna be in the restaurant?
I believe so. If you're going to speak to that. Okay. So the sign reads, it's fairly attractive. It says Troy Botanical Garden, and in parentheses, Korean Noodle and Tea House. And then it has a website, www.troybotanicalgarden.com, noting that it's open 3 days only, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, noting the hours. It has that graphic. And then underneath says Brunswick Golf and Orchard Garden. So it's replacing what's there now.
Yeah, the top sign is what's there now.
And so the golf course will no longer be.
No, we're keeping the golf course.
The golf course-
Yeah, because even on the sign, it does say it's golf course. Yeah, keeping the golf course. In fact, we just got through, putting blacktop on holes from the backside of number 3 all the way down to 9. And phase 2 should be starting next week to go ahead and blacktop holes 2 and 3. So the whole golf course will be paved.
So the golf course, what golf will be playing if the course is paved?
Is
It's
it-
the same,
Is it 9-hole course?
yes.
A 9-hole course.
It's just that we're gonna have blacktop, so the golf course will run on the, right, instead of just going out on the grass all over.
Yeah, good questions. Are there any other good questions? Yeah.
Might be a silly question.
Well, please come up. No silly questions, please.
Maybe everybody can hear me, right?
Well, you know what? Just for your name, we're recording it. We're actually on camera. So please, this is a public hearing. We'll do a public hearing.
So my silly question is,
No silly questions.
why is it just the people within 300 feet of the property?
I'm going to
Here.
defer to the attorney of the board to answer your wonderful question.
Sure, because that's what the Brunswick zoning law requires. Many codes would have simply adjacent property owners. The Brunswick zoning law requires notice to property owners within 300 feet.
And I just might add, that's 300 feet from the property line, so you can imagine a golf course has quite a bit of property line, so the mailing list was quite large.
But it does get posted in the paper. It is posted in the paper.
Yes,
also,
as well as being on the town website.
and on the town website.
So if you could see from there, so we have a page, 3 columns, and then going back, yeah.
So free bowl of noodles with a hole in one, or any promotional things here? or-
Yeah, I can't guarantee what that, but your name will go in the paper.
That's good.
Are there any other comments? Or questions for the applicant? Hearing no further comment, I make a motion to close the public hearing portion of this application. Would a member second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Patricia. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing is closed. Zoning board members are prepared to deliberate and act
I have
on.
one question for
Sorry,
Chuck.
Go ahead, sorry.
Is, the 911 address on the sign doesn't include it.
Oh, good pickup.
I think, yeah, is it on the post? Do you have a number on the post? down either side of the post? If not, I would
No.
appreciate it if you could put it there.
Oh, it might be. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Is it going vertical? What, that wouldn't make sense.
No, I don't see anything.
There isn't, there's no previous and.
Yeah, there's no previous 911 or.
All right,
Yeah, good catch on that, Patricia.
put it on.
So that can just be a condition, right? Approve.
Correct.
So is it fair to say that if any other types of businesses were to go on that property at any time down the road, we would all be informed again? And come sit here again?
If there's a variance requested, so this is the zoning board. So the zoning board is concerned with, so any changes, any proposed changes by an applicant to the zoning law. So when big changes come, kind of starts at the town council and then goes to the planning board and then the zoning board. Not that that's a hierarchy, but that's kind of how it goes. Okay.
Right, and if I could add to that. So in general, there are sign regulations in the town, and if the property owner, the applicant complies with the requirements under the sign law, it's only handled through the building department. It doesn't come to this board or any other board in the town. If there is a request to vary those restrictions or those guidelines, then it comes to this board for a sign variance. It's only when it comes to this board that the property owners are notified. If the sign is in compliance with the sign regulations, the restrictions, that's just handled administratively through the building department. There's no notification.
So in this case, a compliant sign would have been 35 square feet per side. This sign happens to be 51.
And that's why we're here. Mhm.
I would be okay with the reflective sign, with the number over here.
Oh.
If you wanted to do something like that.
Certainly.
Just a reflective sign there and then.
Oh, okay. Right, but if you get the open air, and you want to have that.
Yeah, it'll be reflective so you don't have to light it.
Okay.
We got them right here.
The Center Brunswick Fire Department can provide that for you. Just give them the information. If the, all right, so to continue, this is a non-residential seeker review process. So using the short environmental assessment form submitted in the applications, if in the board's opinion, there is not potential, if there is a potential for at least one significant adverse environmental impact from the sign, then we would determine that there would be a positive declaration. I would make a motion to declare a negative seeker declaration in
I'll
this.
second that.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And please note, Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning has weighed in and determined that the impact shall have no county, it will be irrelevant to the county plans, and that local consideration shall prevail. The board is asked to explain how no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood nor a detriment to nearby properties created by granting the sign variance. So
It's already there's already an existing business there. It's just changing the information on the sign and using the same structure that's currently in place, so it wouldn't make any changes.
And we're asked to explain why the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant pursued other than the area variance.
It's just because of the size that he wants. He just wants the sign bigger than 35 square feet.
So had the sign been 35 square feet,
Sir, I don't mean to cut you off, but the public hearing is closed. This is the time for the zoning board members to discuss the application.
And we're asked to describe whether the area variance is substantial, noting again that the square footage is 51.26 square foot, where the maximum allowed is 35.
Chuck, how big was the sign that's there now?
It's a damn good question, John. We have the overlay of that. We should be able to calculate that because he overlaid the old sign right on top of the new. This is going to be an estimate on my part, but. The existing sign was 86 by 37. That's what he had down on that. So it's not going to be an estimate on my part. $22.09.
This is quite a lot bigger. This is quite a lot bigger.
About double that. Yeah, this is a good ring like that.
I just wanted to get an idea what it's gonna look like. in front
The
of
outside square is going to show where the new sign is. And so it's like a factor of two, you're right.
So John, to your point, you could state that it is substantial.
I would have to say this.
Now we're asked to explain how the proposed area variance will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And those factors could be considered traffic, drainage, dust, noise, odor, the impact on emergency services, among other factors. And I would have to say, after the minor disturbance at the construction of the sign, that it would not place any kind of potential impact on the environment once it is constructed. And we're asked to explain whether the difficulty is self-created, noting that the consideration is relevant but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. And of course, it's self-created in the sense that the establishment's owner wants a larger sign going outside what's requested by the zoning law. Yeah, so noting that there's no other deliberation by the zoning board members, we're asked to consider the balance between the benefit to the applicant as weighed against any detriment to the community at large or the neighborhood in particular, and determining whether to grant with conditions or deny the requested sign variance. It was brought up during our deliberation. A consideration to consider would be to include a reflective 911 sign to the side of the proposed sign.
I make a motion that we approve the sign variance with the condition that they add a reflective 911 address to, do I have to say what side of the sign?
Get me closest to the road. Does it matter what side?
Yeah, I put it, the open sign is closest to the road and right
Okay.
above that is where.
Add reflective
Position of the
911
reflective sign.
address sign to the side of the sign that's closest to the road.
And where would you want that? On the top of the sign,
No, on the side.
on the side, over, again,
Roughly where
Like
I,
it has-
yeah, roughly
yeah.
where I showed it. If
Okay.
you can put it right on the post in that it's reflective, and that's for question of when, it should be there now.
right.
So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second,
Thank you.
Before
Sorry,
you
go
vote,
ahead.
if I
Certainly.
could ask Chuck, is this sign lit? And
It is lit.
And do we know if it's lit 24/7 or limited to the business hours?
No, not 24/7.
Okay, do you know what the business hours are?
It's generally from dusk to dawn, actually eight in the morning, and then shut the tool shop down during the summer at 6 o'clock. Even though people might be out there walking or anything, but as far as the business hours.
Do you know what the proposal is to have the sign lit? What hours, what days?
Right now, the sign will be lit on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it will be coming on the days that it's going roughly from, I'll just say, from 10 till 7.
So the golf course is open early in the morning till whatever time.
Yeah.
The tea house is going to be open 3 days a week.
Correct.
So it will be, the sign will be lit every day.
When there's golfing.
I was gonna say, we're into the winter time,
Right,
it's only gonna be lit on Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
right, but then the.
Because you're talking about off-season. So there's an on-season and an off.
Off-season.
Right.
Is
When-
that something to be
When
considered?
it is season, no, we don't have the sign lit up. During the summer hours. Only because they shut down by 7 and it's still daylight.
So if we can clarify on the
Sure.
record, in season?
Yes.
Generally, what are those months, in general?
Let's say June, July, August, September.
June
So
through
for the-
September.
June through September, in season. The sign will not be lit.
Correct.
In your off-season, the out months, the proposal is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 p.m., the lights will be shut off.
Correct.
Now, what if this business takes off and people are clamoring to eat the Asian noodles on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? And they wanted to accommodate the customers, would they have to come back in to amend that?
Yeah, if there's a condition that these would be lighting restrictions, then to change that, they need to come back and ask for the change to the condition.
All right, so let me just, I'm just gonna say, right now, we have it set off at 7 o'clock. Now, and we have Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now, come summertime, he decides to open it during the week, Monday through Thursday, you know, to make it 7 days. But we still shut down at 7, we don't have to worry about nothing.
Right.
If you're gonna stay later, then we have to come back, because then you're gonna have the lighting and everything. Okay,
Certainly during the in-season, in those months,
correct.
I'm not sure you need to be lighting the sign at 7 p.m., right?
No, but I'm just saying, if he decided to try staying open longer, later.
Then you would come back and
That's
ask for
what I'm
a
saying,
change,
yeah,
correct?
come back.
Correct. Yeah. And that deals with the lighting of the sign. It has nothing to do with the ability to have the sign, it's
It's
just
the
lighting.
of the sign.
Correct.
So, but on the off-season, if they want to be open more than on, or later,
They'd be coming back for the
they'd be
change as
coming
well.
back for the
Right.
changes.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion attached to a condition. Andy, are you clear on that condition?
I am, I'll just, right now, there's 2 conditions attached, if I could, to your proposed
Certainly.
motion. One, to include the reflective 911 sign located on the side of the frame of the structure closest to Hoosick Road.
Mhm.
And also lighting during the months of June through September, no lighting on the sign. In the off-season, which would be October through May, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, light is to be shut off at 7 PM.
Okay.
Okay.
Would a member second?
I'll second.
Do you have any questions, John?
No.
No, okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So your sign variance is approved.
Thank you.
Please continue the work you're doing with our hardworking building department.
I should remember.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good night.
day.
Yeah, right? Thank you for coming. Have a good night. Thank you for coming.
Nobody wants to stay and hear about a solar farm? I can turn that around, Louis.
What's going on? Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me, Dave Brennan with the law firm of Young Summer out of Albany. With me tonight is Louis Torrent from Atlas Renewables. And we were at the last meeting talking about two distributed generation solar projects proposed. And we were in front of this board because they both require a use variance because they're proposed in a zoning district which does not allow solar as a permitted use. And at that introductory meeting, what we were describing to the board were the conditions of the existing grid system, the distribution lines in the community, as well as the substations. And I will just give a quick overview of that discussion, but basically on the lighter shaded half of the map to the eastern part of your town, solar is allowed by special permit and site plan. However, for a solar project to work, it needs a piece of property large enough with all the regular conditions that you would want to see for an appropriately sited solar project. But it also needs to connect to a distribution line, and that distribution line has to connect to a national grid substation. And what we observed in trying to locate and facilitate a project in the community is that the distribution lines and the substations in the town are largely what I'll call tapped out. They lack capacity, so that while the town has what looks to be acres and acres and acres of space that's allowed under the zoning code, in practical terms, there's no place to build a project because you cannot connect to an appropriately sized distribution line or substation. And tying into that is, as we became acquainted with over my last project, there is a standard for use variances for public utilities, and we put that in the initial application materials, but basically there's a different standard for use variances for public utilities under the idea that essential services need to be cited in certain locations to serve the community within which they're located, and
sometimes there's a conflict between the zoning law and those requirements for essential services. Where we got a little bit hung up last month, and I forget which member asked this good question, but it was a good question, was that, Dave and Lewis, there's a recently approved distributed generation solar project along Route 278. And what you have a red line on your map meaning that the distribution line along 278 lacks capacity. How can that be? One of these two things can't be correct. Either we approved the project and they can't tie in, or your map was wrong. So we basically, at the end of our last meeting, we were asked to do a little bit of homework and explain that circumstance. And so Lewis and his team did go back to the National Grid mapping and had conversations with National Grid to try to understand that circumstance. And we did present tonight and hand out tonight, which is never my first inclination to hand things out at a meeting, something summarizing my remarks tonight that you can take home and look at afterwards. But basically, that line was showing up on the National Grid mapping as having 0.0 of capacity remaining in it. What that turns out is that is a placeholder number that National Grid uses when there's a different problem with the line, not that there's no capacity. So in fact, there is capacity for the project that was approved, but there was a different problem with the line that made it show up red. The problem with that line is it suffers a little strong. It has an over voltage condition, meaning the voltage in the line vacillates or surges beyond allowed tolerances. And so that line was marked on their system as having no capacity because that problem requires a remedy. That remedy is being implemented in that area to facilitate the solar projects, there's actually two out there, to be connected. However, once those two projects are connected, that line is back out of capacity and will not allow any others. So we circle back to the situation is the same, but it was for different reasons. So that's the nature of the written materials that were handed out tonight to demonstrate that the National Grid mapping was difficult to decipher when they said 0.0. What that meant was there was a different problem where they weren't allowing connections until it was corrected. While the correction is going to be implemented, we believe, as part of the solar projects. Once the two solar projects are connected, there's no more additional capacity in that line for additional solar projects, which leads us back to our original position, which is we can't build a project in this area of the town where solar is allowed. And that's a bit to have sink in right now, but that's where we are, is still that we can't site a project in the eastern part of the town because there's no distribution line or substation that will allow us to connect into it. So we're then left searching for other areas of the community where the facilities are have appropriate capacity. And I think if I could offer a suggestion for the board to consider is where we are something like this, it's a real technical discussion. And I think, what I would ask is it probably would be best served for all of us, to have this vetted by the board's consultant to see if there's agreement with our supposition, so that we're saying this, we believe we're correct. We've already been asked one very good question about the underpinnings of our analysis, which we've answered. But I think at the end of the day, when we believe the use variance criteria for a public utility is applicable, it lives and dies on sustaining the burden and proving to the board and the larger community that this is in fact the circumstance that we find ourselves in. And it would be my request that the matter be referred to the board's engineering consultant to start that review process to provide the board with its own technical expertise and feedback as to what we're presenting and the validity of it.
Right, and we've reached out just to see if their schedule would allow the time to do this work, and they have. So we haven't officially contacted them, but we just kind of put the feelers out to see if they have the time on their schedule to undertake this.
Okay,
And it seems like they can. It would be LaBerge.
So I think, again, We know each other after many years, and I don't think we're at a point of asking for a public hearing yet until you get a little bit further into this and you believe or have some validity back from your consultant that what we're presenting is appropriate, because I certainly don't want to get to a public hearing and find out that the consultant doesn't agree with me, and you don't want to be sitting in the room finding that out for the first time either. So as much as I always love to go, I don't think we're there yet.
Certainly.
And excuse me, but we were obviously asking that it be referred to the consultant and that we continue on at a subsequent meeting after. Are you using LaVerge again or someone else?
The Verge.
Right, so we did reach out to LaBerge. They have no conflict, they have availability. I think tonight the zoning board should make a formal motion to retain LaBerge as their engineering or technical consultant, and under the zoning law, request LaBerge to prepare an estimate. We'll get that to the applicant or escrow, and then they can get to work reviewing. We would forward over the application documents for them to review initially, to prepare an initial estimate for escrow, and then get going with their review. So that'd be appropriate for the board to consider tonight.
I have one question, kind of basic, but are solar farms considered to be public utilities?
Well, that's interesting. They are certainly a private commercial use. Your question really goes to the standard for the use variance.
Right, well, because Mr. Brennan refers to the public utilities when he's talking about the solar farm, and it's.
And not to put words in Mr. Brennan's mouth, but I think where he may be going is this the public utility use variance standard? Would that be applicable to this application for solar? Is that correct?
Sure, that's where I'm going. So I would distinguish between two things that are interrelated terms and are sometimes used interchangeably but are not. So one would be the use classification or use category under your zoning law. And so if I recall correctly, but I may be mistaken, you probably have a public utility use category on your table of uses. You separately have listed solar, and you separately, for instance, have listed separately telecommunications. So those are different uses under the zoning code and are allowed in different zones depending on where they're classified. Distinct from that, but using very similar terms, is the classification for zoning purposes for the use variance standard. And for the standard for use variances, I'm saying there's a separate standard that is applicable to public utilities. So public utilities being a broader group of providers of essential services to the community. And so I'm not trying to say that this is a public utility under your chart in the back of your zoning code that we fall into the class. I'm saying is for the use variance standard, we're considered an essential service. And in support of that, in the application materials are, I think it was 4 or 5 different cases that we cite where renewable energy generation has been considered a public utility for zoning purposes and for purposes of the use variance standard. So I'm not trying to say that we fall in the district as a public utility. I'm trying to say for when you look at your categories, we're a solar project, we're not allowed in the zones that we're proposing. But when you consider the variance request, it's a use variance because we're not varying the dimensions, we're varying the allowed uses. But the standard is not the traditional 4-part test where we have to show a lack of reasonable return for every single use in the district. We all, I expect, know that you can almost never meet that standard, or it's a really different day when you can meet that standard for all of the different uses. But because it is a public utility and essential service of creating energy that can be consumed within the community, it's a public utility for the different standard, which basically is that the relief is required to provide safe and adequate service, and that there's compelling reasons, economic or otherwise, for allowing the use. And the compelling reasons will be that there is no economic feasibility to upgrade the utility lines or the substations at costs in excess of $1 million. And these projects at this size do not support that sort of investment to recable all the way out Route 2 to allow the electricity to be put into the grid. I would compare these by way of maybe too much background, there are larger solar projects, ones that are above 5 megawatts that are not distributed generation for the local community. Those are ones that put the energy right into the transmission line. So those are the large towers that you'll see in the corridors bisecting town. They go through town, they go up to Scannicook, and they go south. Those larger projects, because they're trying to put energy into the transmission grid, can connect to those. These projects cannot do that. We're limited to basically tying into the distribution centers, lines that run up and down, I would say, every single street in the community.
Right, and David, I think real simply, recall the use variance standard that was applied for the cell tower review that Mr. Brennan was involved with. There are some cases that have addressed whether a wind farm should have that same public utility variance standard applied to it. We've not found any cases specifically applying that standard to solar projects. Clearly very similar in terms of alternative energy supply than wind. So that's the issue.
That's
What
exactly.
standard to apply for the use variance?
And my office, not so much me, because I do a lot more cell towers, obviously, but the rest of several of my other partners really do almost exclusively energy at this point. And so by way of background, the wind was really the first renewables in the state. Not around here, you'll never see it in the Capital District. Up in the Canadian border, up on Tug Hill, out along Lake Erie, you'll see them. And that's why there's a case out there. There was a case that was litigated that has a holding that it was considered a public utility for the variance standard. The solar is the next kind of generation. You're seeing them all over the place now, but you didn't see them all over the place 3 or 4 years ago. And so it hasn't hit the courts yet. It hasn't been decided. We track these things. We've seen some of them get approved, but fortunately for those projects, unfortunately for us, they haven't been sued. So there's not a court case, which is a good thing for that developer that they weren't sued. But I can't come in with a case yet that says, hey, a court has looked at this. But we do think that the legal reasoning is the same and extends whether it's renewable energy by virtue of a wind turbine or for solar.
So I have another question.
Okay.
Because I went through these applications. So these are going to a substation in Sickaway? Is that what I read?
Yes, that's why Louis did all the talking last time and I was quiet. We've switched roles, so Louis can explain a little bit better. So there's 4 substations in the town. 3?
Actually,
3, okay.
one is one is North Point, one is substation called Sigaway, and another one is substation called Brunswick. These names are coming from National Grid.
Right. So these 2 projects are being proposed to go into the Sickaway?
Correct. One project will be located around here, another project will be located around here, and they are connecting. This Sigaway substation has 2 bays. 2 bays is like 2 doors to enter to this substation. One project is connected to door number 1, another project is connected to door number 2.
Okay, so then how do people in the community take advantage of the energy that's being generated by these solar?
Sure. And I had the good fortune of doing another one of these with Louis last Monday night, and I've heard this answer. So these are distributed generation community solar systems. And so people within the National Grid territory, and it's not all of National Grid, but the more limited area of it, can subscribe and basically purchase on your bill, purchase the energy produced in the town and get a discount of, I believe,
From 5 to 10%.
5 to 10%. I don't want to overstate. So you can get a 5 to 10% reduction on your energy costs, and you could subscribe through National Grid to basically select power created in the community and use it here. And it will power, was it 1,200 homes, or am I confusing that number with?
Each project approximately will be, well, maybe Brunswick project will be 1,000 homes. The second project will be 1,200 homes. average numbers?
So there's about enough energy that's being created for each one to do the needs of 1,000 or 1,200 homes. You could, in theory, have, a large, you can get RPI or someone like that may take up the whole subscription. You could have the schools, the hospitals. So there's different ways to do it, but basically it goes out and we were asked a very similar question last week, and one idea is to notify the local residents in advance of this opportunity and give them basically advance notice. And actually on the board, some people said, oh yeah, I'm already subscribed to a different project, and so I'm already getting the 5 or 10% off our energy bill. And I will, someone will point this out before I do, but at some point that is the cost of the energy on your bill. And I don't study these as much as I used to, but you've got the delivery charge, which is the national grid charge, versus the energy charge. So when we say 5 or 10%, it's off that portion that is the energy charge.
Okay, so then another question. So there could be the possibility that the project goes through and RPI comes in and subscribes and takes up all the power.
I'd be surprised by now that they haven't already figured out another one that they're purchasing from, but I was just saying it has enough energy.
So that it's not available for the community.
Well, certainly we want to sell the power to subscribers. And so how we've approached that elsewhere is to say that to keep the benefit within the community is to have a process in place to notify the community in advance of the availability that the power will be coming online and allow them first choice at subscribing to it before it goes out to the larger area within which people can subscribe. But I'm sure right now that there's probably an availability for most people in the community if they are interested to subscribe to some other project. Maybe it's one of the other ones already in the community. Maybe it's one in Scotticoke that's been approved and built. But those opportunities are out there. But what we've suggested is offering it up first and giving people advance notice so that they can have the benefit of the energy created in their own community.
So then another question I have is what is the benefit to the community if the people in the community don't subscribe and someplace like RPI comes in? I mean, I know there's other things that go on with like the tax benefit dollars to the schools and stuff like that.
Sure, and I'm very up to speed about the tax benefits, and I'll
We don't need to go into all that.
I don't want to. Okay,
No,
I was
we
going to
don't
say I
need
was
to go
going to touch
into
on
all
it
that.
very briefly, but yes, there are the potential for tax benefits that these projects pay taxes, whether it's just on assessed value or under a pilot, but there's an ability to pay taxes. So. No, please go ahead.
First, this subscription is regulated by a server at the general state level. And they will not allow these projects or any project at all to be focused only in one small community. This is open for all the national grid, NYSERDA, Orange, or wherever. What is possible is that we market within your community in the first month. If all it's sold out, fantastic. If it's only 70%, then we market to the rest of the. This one for some projects in some towns. Now we have a couple of projects, town of Bethlehem, town of Kirkland. What we are offering, it's a small contribution, but we are proud of this. We want the integration of renewable energy with the natural. It's a good combination. So in some cases, we have agreed with the towns that we will build around the solar farm a trail with some signs for teachers, schools, citizens to walk around the trail and to understand what is solar and to understand that which are the benefits, which is the impact even to the animal community. So this is something that it depends. There are some towns that they don't want, there are some towns that they are happy with this idea, happy to explore. This is a small contribution, but it's beyond economics. This is something that in many cases makes sense, this education and understanding what is a solar farm. As Mr. Brennan said, 4 years ago, nobody knew what was energy solar. We think that we need to make progress in that sense. These are some of the benefits. We pay a small scholarships as well for schools to understand what are renewable energies in general. Not only solar, but also with this biomass and also with this wind, and which are the benefits. There are many questions, some good questions, although with no foundations. What about the noise, about the visual impacts, or about even the electromagnetics that the solar farms will produce? By the way, they are producing electromagnetics, everything related to electricity is producing electromagnetics, but at a level 10 times, 100 times less than the iPhones, less than a vacuum cleaner, much less than any electrodomestic at home. So we need to increase the understanding about what is a solar farm in a community, and we are happy on every time to offer this option.
And the other thing I was going to offer in response to your question is, when you say kind of what's the benefit to the community is I would say long term, but it doesn't seem like it's that long now, is several years ago, New York had the renewable portfolio standard, which basically set the expectations and the policy for renewables, right? They changed that a couple of years ago to the clean energy standard, which basically says that the state is expecting 70% of our energy usage to come from renewables by 2030. And so that's what has accelerated the push on these. And so maybe in 2021, we talk about, okay, who's not signed up and who can subscribe, and that's gonna, but that sort of thing is gonna, penetrate the marketplace over time. It's, if we're meeting that goal at 70%, it's going to be more ubiquitous in the future than it is right now. It's kind of like, I don't have solar panels on my house, so a couple of my neighbors do, and it's like I just have not done that yet, but other people have, and I think that we're going to see it more and more as we go forward.
Just going on this idea, not all the houses qualify to have solar on the roof. Not only mechanically, I'm adding some weight on the roof, but also from location point of view. If your roof is looking to the wrong direction, then it will not pay off because of the solar modules. The idea of this community solar is to compensate that deficit. Not all the houses qualify for solar, but I believe in renewable energy. I want to have renewable energy, okay, subscribe to a community solar project. That's the idea, to allow those people. I would like, but my house cannot because of the orientation of the roof. Then I also try to do this community solar.
And I'll because I'll take up maybe 2 more minutes, and we're doing nice, good on time for a change here, and be done with the meeting hopefully quickly. But as we're exchanging ideas and you're asking good questions, is the one thing in Brunswick, and I'm seeing it in some other communities, and where the eastern part of the town, which is largely, I call it the more rural part of the community where the farms still exist, is zoned for solar. There is a real tension between that being zoned for solar and putting it out there. And what happens is the easy projects are the ones that are on farm fields. There's nothing there. The trees are gone. They come in and they put the panels in, and we convert that. The problem is that's not helpful to the farmers. And we see this all the time. The farmers will tell you that leasing an acre of agricultural land, if they don't own it, they lease it. It's, I would say, $75 to $125 an acre for the season to grow corn, something like that. The solar companies pay like 10 times that. They'll pay like $1,000 to $1,500 per acre to the project. What happens is, in practical terms, it has the real potential to displace farming. It's a real issue in, I'm going to say this community, but upstate New York, about the displacement of farmland and the converting it from agricultural production. And the benefit of these 2 projects being in the western part of the town, they're nicely, and I always say this to my clients, it's like these things live and die on how they're sited, how they're situated, whether they're visible, and whether you're going to have neighbors come out, as we all know with these boards, screaming about this or embracing it. And the thing about these two projects is they're nicely located, that they're not going to have a room full of people screaming at us is our position, because that's not helpful either. But the flip side is we could, if the distribution system worked out in the eastern part of the town, it's kind of easy pickings, but you're picking up farmland and you're pushing some farmer who is haying or growing corn out there to now have to go to Grafton or now have to go up to Scotticoke. It's the stories are it's pushing farmers further and further from the farm to go out and find affordable land. And so there is a bit of a policy thing, and not all of these are able to make that point. There's certainly ones that are competing for that resource, but that's the benefit of these two that I would want to leave the board to think about, is that there is a trade-off that goes on here. These address that problem.
I guess what I'm not understanding is the industry as a whole, as you were saying about citing panels on roofs. I am seeing panels being put on north sides of roofs just because they can be. As for what their performance is there, it's pretty poor. But the solar companies that are putting these up on homes are putting them up in an area where they're not going to get the best performance because they can put them up. Another question I don't understand about the industry is, how do you guys work? Is it like for an analogy, a poor one, where the ambulance gets to the injured person and they get to the body? They get the insurance money. We have another solar company that's coming in on Thursday for behind Gilead Church. Now that is farm field. That is zoned correctly. They come in and get their approvals before you do. Do they knock you out of the game because that's going on that substation?
That's the church that's in
That's
Eagle Mills.
No, on the 278?
Oh, that's the other one on 278. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's what I was speaking of. There's
And
There are
7.
two. One is approved, one is installed. There's a third one that's coming in Thursday.
Okay.
So how does that work with you guys? Are you competing
But
time-wise for
Who gets there
them?
first?
There is, I'll let Louis.
Substation. So each substation is defining the maximum capacity, and the feeder lines of that substation is defining the maximum capacity available for the substation. A project in Niagara is not competing with Brunswick, of course. These projects around this substation are not competing with the projects on this substation, are not competing with the projects in these substations. You can imagine, in some way, isolated substations. Back to your question, we would like to have a project here, but there is no capacity. There is no capacity in the field line, there is no capacity in the substation. I will speak for the other third project, third company. Maybe it's a question for you to ask, hey, which is the limits of the field line at 13.2 kilowatts? It's not an answer, it's national grid answer. 10 megawatt, up and down. Do not expect 15 megawatt, do not expect 12 megawatt. More than 10 megawatt at 13.2 kilowatts. So if you are talking about the 33, 66, 150 kilowatts, of course the capacity is much larger. But at this 13.2 kilowatts, more than 10 megawatt, it's unfeasible. Unfeasible because how National Grid designs these lines is that, all right, I will use this size of the cable, considering that this size of the cable in the future, with all the expansions from industry's homes and now for new energy projects, maximum will be 10 megawatt. If you want to install more megawatts, okay, you have to take all the miles to add an additional cable.
So they are not going by the same data you are.
No.
So this is I'll call it the brick church.
Yep.
That has the spring antennas in the.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So you said there were 3 substations in town,
Within the boundary of.
and you said one was maxed out due to errors on the voltage variances.
That's the lines, not the
That's
substation.
That's the line.
Not the
Okay,
substation.
but you're saying that substation only has 10 kW left in it?
Each substation may have 1 bay or 2 bays.
Mm-hmm.
And this 1 bay or 2 bay has a transformer which is defining the capacity of that substation.
Right.
Then you can imagine that the substation like the trunk of a tree. Then this trunk has different branches, and each branch has a capacity. Maximum, each branch has a 10 megawatt capacity. If this is a big substation, maybe it will have 5, 6 branches, so the total capacity of the substation may be 20, 40, or 60 megawatt. But all these branches arriving to the trunk are 13.2 kilovolts. So each of the branches has maximum 10 megawatt. If you imagine the branches, when the branch is connected to the trunk, this is a strong branch. When it's at the very bottom, at the top of the tree, this is a very, very thin, small branch. You cannot install 10 megawatt here. You can even install 5 megawatt here. Not surprisingly, the distance of this Tamarack project, approximately 1.6, 1.7 miles to the substation. Not surprisingly, it's very similar to the distance that we have in our projects to the substation. Not surprising, not by chance. Again, if you try to install a solar project here, the answer from the utility will be, technically it's possible, please enhance 10 miles of cable. Good luck. The utility will not tell you, I don't know your business model, I don't know if the solar project can afford or cannot afford 10 miles. Of course, the answer is no, unless the state of New York is raising, and instead of 5 or 10% discount, it's 100% overcharge. Of course, that's not the idea. The idea is to make the transition to renewable energy being affordable. So basically, that's the situation.
But I agree with Mr. Brennan.
Chuck, if I can make a suggestion, if we can go back to what Mr. Brennan started with, we're really off into a lot of
we are,
technical
yeah.
issues,
Yeah.
and it probably would be appropriate for the board to consider retaining a technical consultant, and let's get that review started, and once that review is completed, we get Ron Verge or someone from his office here, and the board's going to be better equipped to speak to the technical issues. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much so. Regarding Mr. Brennan's comment about, well, we've spoken about this, regarding environmentalists versus farmers and the land being used for solar versus farming. There are some farmers that will take that check. And because the dairy industry has been so depressed.
Oh, yeah.
So-
No, I'm not saying it never happens, and certainly, there's a, I shouldn't have said it was black and white. Certainly, it's nice when it supplements the agricultural income.
We have one farmer right here that
Yeah.
is well aware.
Yeah, exactly, but it is, you hear different things from different farmers. I've heard, that's great, because I can rent out this field that I don't use and have some steady income, that's great. But if it's, hey, I'm losing a field, I had a project in the town where I'm planning board attorney, it was the gentleman on the planning board was farming the field that they came in and said they wanted to put the solar on. And, that didn't really help the case so much that he was losing, one of the biggest farmers in town was losing a big field. And
He was a tenant?
Yeah, he was farming the field. The landowner was in contract with the solar company, and he recused himself, of course, but, it was one of these
Still a tough pitch.
tough pitch, and you could see it from everywhere. So it had all the earmarks of not a good case, and it was turned down. It happens. And so that's where I come, I get clients, we want projects that can't be seen from everywhere, and hopefully don't have a fight with, the biggest farmers in town about taking their fields. So that's what I saw in another town.
Our
town
plan is more in the direction that, yes, it may happen. In general terms, this is good or this is bad for the community. For that specific person, probably it's a good income of revenue, but this is not going in the right direction, pushing far away or removing agricultural land, which we know that one of the problems in the future is not only energy, it's also food. So looking to the big picture, water, food, energy, these are the big problems. And in my view, I will not make offers to agricultural land because we don't think that it is the right direction. Yes, we know that it's possible, yes, we know that there are other solar farms which are building on agricultural land, we are not. One of the complaints that we received is that, okay, you are not building an agricultural land, but you are foresting a forest. Okay, we are cutting trees, and it's a fair question. It's a very
Yeah, that was my next question, yeah. What is the,
Okay, what is the balance, what is the trade? First, when we're cutting these trees, it's not waste material. You can use for biomass, which is renewable energy. You can use for timber. You can have multiple purposes. And what I think is important, we are not touching the surface of the land. Differently from other businesses, trucking, that after 25, 30 years, when you remove the gas well, that land will not be again a forest. That was the case in our solar farm. You remove the commission solar farm and the forest can grow again. That's important. So, because in terms of waste material, no. In terms of, okay, but the trees are absorbing CO2. Okay, but don't believe me. Look at the Environmental Protection Agency and you will see that each of these solar farms are equivalent to 10,000 trees. 10,000 trees in terms of CO2. And we are producing electricity, and the trees are not producing electricity. And after the life of these 25, 30 years, you can plant again a forest. So nothing is, again, differently from other businesses, it is possible to grow a forest again after a solar farm.
This one is actually a great example because the one off of Shippey Lane, and I didn't realize this, but from 1936 to about 1940 was an oval racetrack.
Yeah.
So if you look at the historic aerial photos, that actually was clear cut and was a racetrack. And now 70 or whatever, 60, 80 years later, it's all treed over. So it's a lifetime to all of us. It's a speck of dust in the lifetime of the world. So this does come back. And I will say on the farmer side, in fairness, is there are studies out there that'll say something like, and I can't quote exactly which one it is that even if all the solar was built for all of the needs of the state, it's less than 1% of all the agricultural lands anyway would be used for that. So there's, I'm saying that this is a good thing when you were not chewing it up, but there's other studies that will say there's plenty of land to go around that in the scheme of things, we're not displacing solar. I don't want to be shooting the next person in the foot that's coming in. Well, I guess, it's corn behind the church, isn't it?
Yeah, fields.
So it's an ag area, so it's
an ag
allowed.
area. So I'm just saying is there's different studies that support that it's not,
And there's also another one that we heard is coming in at Bolson Road. Now, Bolson Road was proposed earlier. They didn't see where they had they wanted to upgrade the lines, but it seems that they want to upgrade the lines now. So that's another one. So,
You're seeing
you're
them all
gonna,
now.
the other issue that I have is displacing the animals. Yes, the trees can go back. You've got a problem with the white-tailed deer now where you've got chronic wasting disease. They're not certain if it transfers into humans. But if you take these deer, take them out of that acreage and stick them somewhere else, you're gonna have more compressed. They're also finding COVID in deer too.
So things and issues to talk about for another time, for
Yeah.
sure. There's a lot to discuss.
Can you just remind me, so you were sending it to LaBerge?
No, I think the
We need to
order of
vote on
business
it,
tonight is to make a formal motion
Right.
to retain an environmental review consultant. The proposal is LaBerge Group to provide technical support for the Atlas renewable applications for the proposed Brunswick Solar Farm and the proposed Sikowitz Solar Farm.
Yeah, I make that motion.
I
Second.
second.
Thank you, Patricia. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Aye.
And so what will happen is I'll forward over, do you have the applications electronically? Yes, we do. Email that to me. I'll get that to Ron. He'll review them and
Did
come
you,
up with
you might have gotten
estimate.
those to Wendy already, did you, Dave?
I'd have to check my emails.
All right.
I believe probably, but I
Okay.
will double check. And I know this one tonight we'll have to send over.
Has the gentleman been named in LaBerge? What,
Who did do it?
No,
Not
I
yet.
just talked to Ron today and went through that with him.
So I guess, well, my question was when I was presupposing you were sending it was, the process to, if they were coming up with a number that we wanted to put in escrow, because what I don't want to, I would rather not wait a month for him to not work on something to give us a number. We'd rather submit that into escrow to the building department so that he's, that we're not asking him to work without the benefit of the town.
Correct. I would anticipate if I get that electronically, I'll shoot that to LaBerge. They'll review that and come up with the estimate for the initial escrow in fairly short order. That'll go to the building department. They can forward that to you.
Okay.
And as soon as that's funded, he'll get going. I don't know that his review will be completed for the December meeting.
Just
but
looking up December 20th.
That's up to the board's
Sure.
discretion.
If you don't mind holding us on the agenda, and we'll decide whether it makes
That's
sense.
up to the board's
It
discretion.
makes sense to appear if the review is not complete. Honestly, I don't think we'd have much to talk about, but if we could be held as a placeholder to see if it's worthwhile
Fine.
to discuss it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time this evening.
Yeah, have a good night. Are there any other items of new business?
Oh, seems strange. Nobody wants to put in pools.
Okay. Right. I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting with a member second. Thank you, Patricia. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
So
Okay, we're off.